So in this video, I'm going to talk about another hidden mistake as to why you are not losing fat, which always results in people giving up.
Spare me.
Not ideal. Now, I've seen this happen many times where someone comes into work with me and they're in a terrible state altogether. They've tried every class under the sun. HIIT, boxing, sports, CrossFit, every kind of fitness HIIT workout that they can think of. And although, yes, they feel great at the time, there's a bit of community there, awesome. Evidently, they do all of these classes, and although at the time they feel brilliant, there's a little bit of community there, you know, they're putting in a bit of work, they see very little change, or the change that they were expecting to see doesn't match up to the effort they feel like they're putting in.
That's it? Work harder.
And it's not to say that these classes aren't brilliant for fat loss. They absolutely are. I can tell you that for a fact. However, majority of the time, people seem to think that once they've done a couple of heavy duty, sweaty classes, they've burned a massive amount of calories. It's time for them to have a wee treat or maybe have a big meal, more so than their calorie deficit.
How many grams of protein you eat?
That is not the case, absolutely not. Hence why overestimating the amount of calories that you burn during your training sessions, HIIT workouts, whatever it is that you're doing to try and lose fat is a massive hidden mistake that catches a lot of people off guard. Now let's talk about these HIIT classes very briefly. HIIT classes, fitness classes, CrossFit, whatever it is. These are fantastic for ramping up the intensity. They're brilliant for people who are new to training. They offer a sense of community. There's probably going to be other people who have also struggled with their weight who are in the same class as yourself. What tends to happen a lot of the time, you're putting in so much work, you've been given absolutely zero nutritional guidance with these. You've probably heard them say, just eat whatever you want, you're training hard enough. It's not the case. Absolutely not the case. You train hard in these classes, and then you go home and you binge, or you overconsume and you go way over your calorie deficit. What I've seen happen a lot, particularly with women, is they go to these classes, they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they're getting strong, they're getting fit-ish, but they're eating rings around them. And what tends to happen is they keep the fat that they have and then gain some more, but they also pack on a good bit of muscle. So now they're left with this chunk as well as the fat. As a client described to me, she felt like a chunkosaurus. Big strong girl, still fat. That is not what you go to these classes for, and it's easy to fall into the trap when you go to things like this because the community has evolved around getting stronger, getting fitter. Just lift as heavy as you can, lift as much as you can for as many reps as possible. That's the coach's job. That is what they're there to do. They make sure you perform at your best. A lot of the times the coaches providing these classes have absolutely zero experience when it comes to losing weight themselves.
Amino acids after you work out or before?
That's why when you go to these meetups or you go and have a few pints or have a dinner, they're able to eat like fucking crazy because they've never understood what it is to control your calories. Having to measure the amount of calories that you're burning every single day in order to lose X amount of fat. It just doesn't work. I'm not saying go find yourself a fat PT, absolutely not, because you will be spinning your wheels the exact same way that they have for the entirety of your fat loss journey. But go find somebody who has maybe gone through a transformation. Bodybuilders are amazing for this. I 100% agree that I think bodybuilders are the best people to help people go from fat to in shape as quickly. Is it healthy? Not really, but they do have a lot of information when it comes to getting people in shape fast. Another way that people are constantly overestimating the calories that they burn is using things like these smartwatches. The Garmin isn't too bad, but you have to remember these are giving you an estimate, or using the fucking treadmill as, or Stairmaster, or whatever cardio equipment tickles your fancy, as a guide of how many calories you burned. It's giving you an estimate. If you type it into Google, it gives you something like, within a 30-minute training session or HIIT workout or whatever it is, an average of 300 to 500. That is an average. It all does revolve around fitness level, your height, your weight, your age, gender, high testosterone, low testosterone, what stage of life you're going through, ladies. There's a lot of variables that determines how much calories you're burning. Just because you sweat excessively doesn't necessarily mean that you've burned thousands of calories.
Are you smoking meth?
Although these things are fantastic for running, tracking your pace, getting your steps in, be very careful and don't become so reliant on them giving you an estimate of how much calories you're actually burning. If it's low, it's probably right. I would say it's a little bit lower. You always want to underestimate if you're going to be using any type of smartwatch gadget. God, for Jesus, do not use your phone to track your fucking intensity of training. Doesn't make sense. Another thing is people varying off their diet plan or meal plan or structure of eating, which is working for them because they've had a brilliant week of training or they've had a couple of solid weeks of training. No, you don't need it. If you have, for example, if you have any of this, you've got plenty of energy to burn. If you've got fat in your body, you've got energy to burn, 100%. Yes, you might be a little bit hungry, but you're not going to die. You can continue to spin your wheels for the next 10 years trying to lose fat, doing Slimming World and CrossFit and all that shit. Or you could decide to, right, let's take a step back. Let's strip everything back that what I'm doing. I'm going to do the same amount of exercise every day, at least 5 days a week. I'm going to do the same amount of steps every single day. I'm going to eat the same amount of food every single day. Do that for 2 or 3 months. If you're in a deficit and you're in some kind of structured training plan, you should see changes 100%. Burning calories, fat loss, things like that, it is easy to explain and it's an easy process that happens within the body. It doesn't take a lot to get it going. It is, however, very difficult to stick to it. To conclude, do not overestimate the amount of calories that you're burning. If you're going to use a watch to track it, be very careful. It's usually going to be on the lower end. If you've had a very busy week of training, or you've had a very successful week, I should say, of training, you don't need to reward yourself. Reward yourself by sticking to your plan, sticking within your calorie deficit. That's how you reward yourself in the long term. If you're just starting off and maybe you're in these fitness classes or you're doing HIIT training or whatever it is you're doing, please be mindful that exercise and cardio and intensity is only one piece of the puzzle. Your nutrition has to be dialed in. You'll hear people talk about, oh well, I need balance. You've been having balance the last 10 years of your life. The last thing you need is some balance. What you need is unbalance in the way of training, nutrition, cardio, supplementation and looking after yourself properly. Otherwise you're just fucking yourself. But look, that's just my advice. Take it or leave it. If you're enjoying the content, please follow along and we'll tackle another hidden mistake as to why you're not losing fat the next day.